On a summer morning in 1962, smoke began to rise from beneath the quiet streets of Centralia, Pennsylvania. At first, no one paid much attention. The town had always been built on coal. Black veins of it ran deep under the ground, and the faint scent of burning wasn't unusual. But this smoke didn't stop. It didn't fade. It grew darker, hotter, more toxic. Within months, it was seeping through the earth, curling up from cracks in the pavement, pouring from the basements of homes. The people of Centralia didn't know it then, but their town was dying, slowly, invisibly, from below. What began as a routine landfill fire would become one of the most haunting environmental disasters in American history. A fire that still burns over 60 years later. A coal town built on fire. Centralia was once a proud working-class mining town in the heart of Pennsylvania's anthracite coal region. Founded in the 1850s, it was a boom town during the Industrial Revolution, the kind of place where coal dust mixed with the morning fog, and miners' children grew up playing on black slag heaps. By the 1950s, the town had about 1,200 residents, 5 churches, 7 bars, and a strong sense of community. Everyone knew everyone. On Sundays, bells rang from the Ukrainian Catholic Church on the hill, and the smell of homemade pierogies drifted through open kitchen windows. Coal wasn't just the town's economy, it was its identity. The black rock that built their homes, sent their kids to school, and kept their furnaces burning through brutal Pennsylvania winters. But it also held a danger no one wanted to think about. For decades, old coal seams had been abandoned underground, hollow tunnels laced through the earth, dry and filled with methane. One spark could set them ablaze. And in 1962, one did. The fire beneath. Every year, just before Memorial Day, Centralia's volunteer firefighters cleaned up the town dump, an open pit near the old mine entrance. They burned the trash, as they always did, to clear space for new garbage. But this year, something went wrong. No one knows exactly how, but the fire spread through a fissure in the pit and slipped into the labyrinth of coal tunnels below. When the firefighters thought they'd put it out, they hadn't. The ground was still smoldering, deep inside the abandoned mine. Weeks passed, then months. People noticed strange things. The ground grew warm to the touch. Smoke rose from the cemetery hill. Dogs refused to walk near certain patches of grass. By 1969, 7 years later, the U.S. Bureau of Mines sent scientists to investigate. What they found shocked them. The fire had spread for miles underground, feeding on the endless supply of anthracite coal. The temperature in some spots reached 1,000 degrees Fahrenheit. Centralia wasn't just on fire. It was burning from the inside out. Living on the edge of hell. At first, many residents refused to believe there was real danger. To them, it was just another mining issue, something that could be fixed. But by the 1970s, the signs became impossible to ignore. Gas levels in basements rose to lethal concentrations. Carbon monoxide detectors blared. The ground began to crack open, not tiny fissures, but deep, steaming gaps that swallowed fences, trees, even cars. One morning in 1979, gas station owner John Coddington stuck a dipstick into one of his underground fuel tanks and pulled it out red hot. The gasoline below was boiling. The state sent engineers, then federal agencies, then funding. They tried digging trenches to stop the fire. They poured cement, sand, even fly ash into the burning tunnels. Nothing worked. The fire was moving too deep, too fast. And then, in 1981, Centralia made national headlines. the day the ground opened. It was Valentine's Day, 1981. Todd Domboski was playing in his backyard when the earth suddenly split beneath his feet. A sinkhole opened, 6 feet wide and 150 feet deep, and the boy fell in. His cousin barely managed to pull him out before he disappeared into the steaming pit. When firefighters measured the gas levels inside, they found deadly concentrations of carbon monoxide. That moment changed everything. What had been a slow-motion disaster became a national emergency. Television crews arrived. Reporters called it the town that fell into hell. The people of Centralia looked around and realized their home was no longer safe. The fire had won.
The sinkhole incident turned Centralia from a local mystery into a national tragedy. By 1984, the U.S. government decided there was only one option left: buy everyone out. Congress approved $42 million to relocate the residents and demolish the homes. The Exodus. Over the next few years, moving vans rolled through Centralia. Families packed up decades of memories, wedding photos, Christmas ornaments, heirlooms, and left their houses behind to be bulldozed. By 1990, most of the town was gone. Streets led to nowhere. The post office closed. Zip code 17927 was officially erased. But not everyone left. A few stubborn residents, mostly elderly people who lived there their whole lives, refused to abandon their town. "This is my home," one woman said. "I'll die here if I have to." The state eventually gave up trying to force them out. In 2013, Pennsylvania reached a legal settlement allowing the last 7 residents to live out their lives in Centralia. When they die, their homes will revert to the state. The fire still burns. Today, Centralia looks like a ghost from another world. The streets are cracked and overgrown. The church on the hill, St. Mary's, still holds occasional services, but the town below it is gone. In some spots, wisps of smoke still rise from the ground. You can feel the heat through your shoes if you stand long enough. The coal seams are still burning, slowly, silently, and scientists estimate they could continue to burn for another 200 years. The fire has eaten away at more than 400 acres of land and shows no sign of stopping. Ironically, nature has begun to reclaim what humanity lost. Trees grow through the cracks in the asphalt. Deer wander the empty streets. The famous Graffiti Highway, an abandoned stretch of Route 61 once covered in colorful street art, was finally buried in 2020 to prevent injuries, but it remains legendary online. Centralia is a ghost town, but also a living wound, a reminder of how human carelessness can awaken forces we can't control. The science behind the horror. Coal seam fires are among the hardest to extinguish on Earth. Once ignited, they can burn for centuries, deep underground, with little oxygen. In Centralia's case, the coal layer sits hundreds of feet below the surface and stretches for miles. Even if firefighters could reach it, pouring water or chemical foam wouldn't help. The intense heat would simply turn the water into steam. There are similar fires around the world, in China, India, and Australia, but Centralia's is the most famous, largely because it destroyed a modern American town. NASA satellites have even detected heat signatures from space. From tragedy to legend. Centralia's eerie, smoking landscape has inspired countless books, documentaries, and even Hollywood films. Most famously, it served as the real-life inspiration for the Silent Hill video game and movie franchise, a fictional town engulfed by supernatural mist and fire. Tourists once flocked to see the place firsthand, though the state has since restricted access for safety reasons. Still, the legend of Centralia endures, a story whispered in podcasts, classrooms, and horror forums across the internet. For many Americans, it stands as a haunting symbol of industrial greed and environmental neglect, but also of resilience. The people of Centralia didn't vanish quietly. They fought. They adapted. They remembered. Even now, the last handful of residents maintain their lawns, hang American flags, and keep the memory of their lost town alive. The last light in Centralia. In the early mornings, mist still curls through the valleys around Centralia. The old church dome gleams faintly in the sun. Beneath it, the fire continues to burn, unseen, unstoppable. It's hard to imagine now that beneath the grass, hundreds of feet below, entire streets and tunnels are slowly collapsing into glowing embers. The coal that once built America's steel and cities now consumes the ground it came from. Centralia is both a tragedy and a prophecy, a reminder that sometimes the past doesn't stay buried, it burns. And somewhere, deep underground, it still whispers through the smoke.